by the military-industrial complex.
And now, the Taliban will pay a price.
Do we have the confidence to do in the Middle East what our fathers and grandfathers accomplished in Europe and Asia?
The situation in Afghanistan is deteriorating.
What I do oppose is a dumb war.
All right, we're rolling. Welcome to the Boardwalk Podcast, and we're very honored to have a special guest with us today, Eric Strand. Eric is the creator of a page if you follow us on Instagram or on our social media, you've probably seen him linked before. He runs the War Murals Project, which of course has a big social media presence, and he documents art found at military installations in the global war on terror, I think is the project's aim. So we'll let Eric introduce himself and tell us a little bit about the War Murals Project. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. My name is Eric Strand. I spent 10 years in the Minnesota National Guard. Got out just before COVID happened. Up until that point, I enlisted, did about a year of college. Didn't really know what I was doing there, how to pay for it. Thought I wanted to be a cop, and it was right after the surge, so they were taking lots of people. So I'm colorblind, so that was kind of a hurdle. Tried to cheat it with the help of my recruiter to get the military police MOS. That didn't work out at all. Whatever information he gave me was completely incorrect. So it said I couldn't be combat arms. I had the choice at the time to be finance, a cook, or a truck driver. And I was like, all right, let's see what finance does. So got into that, spent 10 years in the Guard. I was a financial management specialist. Most of my time I specialized in the dispersing section. So everyone knows the finance office, they're the ones that manage your pay. There's contract vendor services. So when you're deployed, making sure that, the contractors are getting paid correctly and the paperwork is up to date. And there's the dispersing section. And those are the guys that manage all of the cash operations, as well as the Eagle cash cards. Maybe you recall the savings deposit programs. And then we have a vault full of money, support people that way. And then I deployed in 2018 to the Middle East, was based out of Camp Bearing, Kuwait, traveled all over. I was an operations manager and dispersing agent for the finance unit in order to support Operation Inherent Resolve. So it was pretty cool to have the opportunity you take a briefcase full of money and a laptop and like one or two other buddies and go out to a fob in the middle of nowhere, support the guys out there, make sure that the pay's up, make sure that they have enough money to get what they need done, get their haircuts and pay for meals, not too much to cause problems. Look for counterfeits and make sure that AFEs and all those guys are doing their paperwork correctly so that there's nothing funny going on. But I think with that opportunity, I was able to leave the purgatory that is Camp Bearing and see just all of these different FOBs in Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, went to a couple other places too. Just seeing the art that's there, you get a feel of, in Kuwait, you've got 20 years of T-walls painted out there. Each one is kind of a representation of, not just Kilroy was here back in World War II, but we were here. This is kind of what we did. This represents us. So Camp Bearing is kind of the last big staging base. There were a lot of other bases in Kuwait years ago, like Camp Virginia, but this is the last one. So you've kind of got the Louvre of T-wall art out there. Everywhere you go, there's concrete painted. And as I was looking at it, it kind of, each one tells a story. And not only that, but it's like seeing memory fade in real time. That stuff's just left in the desert to decay. The names start to wear off before the logo and the mascot do, which is kind of cool. And then you'd see the stuff in Iraq. People would be painting their new logo on something that they'd painted over from Iraqi freedom, maybe 10 years prior. So there's just layers on layers built out there. Started collecting photos of the art as I went around and set up the War Murals Project website just kind of out of boredom as we were waiting to redeploy back home. So I set up the website on on the Wix platform, just at the Eric John USO, started putting photos up and online, and each one tells a story. So you can dig into there, learn what these guys did, what happened to them, learn about some of them are informal memorials that they made for their buddies, and it all just kept unpacking it from there. I'm a big history fan, so I dug into it a little bit deeper, not knowing what to do before I started working again when I got back from deployment, and then it's been growing and growing. So I think we've got most of the work is me. I've got maybe 2,000 photos of deployment art on the website. Probably got another 1,500 or so that I haven't sorted through. So I'll just get hodgepodges of stuff. Guys will just email me things that they took on their flip phone in 2006 or something I got to sort through. But it seems like a really good way to resonate with people, kind of saying, this is our story. Hey, I was here. I remember you guys. So rather than focusing on one individual, you can talk about the place and maybe the unit and the experience of the time. And that's become a really good way to tell the story to the public. I think maybe a third of the eyeballs I get are from the public that are just into the military and will somehow catch on to it between seeing like all the Hua combat footage and stuff that they'll catch on social media. And they're really connecting to it, being like, oh, hey, my dad was here. Or I'll get emails and be like, oh, this is the T-wall my dad painted 15 years ago. It was really cool seeing that. I was really honored to, I signed my name in Sharpie on the back of it and took a picture and sent it to him. But you learn a lot about what it's like for homecoming and stuff too. So you'll see the memorials there or find out what happened to the guys when they came home. So you just get a couple, be like, hey, this guy painted it. He took his own life like 6 months later. Or, you learn about, hey, this guy painted it, but, he quit his job at a factory. He hated it. And now he's like a custom detailer for cars. And that was kind of that he was voluntold by his first sergeant to paint this in order to build morale and stuff. When he wasn't on guard or anything, he was kind of required to do that because apparently he was the most talented person there. So it's been really cool to keep sharing, exploring it. People keep sending it to me. I'm looking at taking it to the next level, trying to make it to a digital library that people can explore and unpack, maybe like a map feature. So you can see, hey, I was here, and you can drill into year or unit. And it really tells a story of what the unit did. But you've got all like the graffiti and the shithouse poetry and stuff too. You can really get a pulse on the morale and kind of the attitudes of, what are we doing here? Let's just take the oil and go. Or, there's all sorts of stuff written on those walls.
How many people send you stuff, Eric? Like on a day-to-day basis? Like, you said it's growing and growing. So when people send you, emails or pictures, do they include a history? Like you mentioned some of the history and stuff behind it. I have a hard time believing, or I have an easy time believing that it would be, it's easy to get lost in the time frame a bit. People have kind of poor memories when it comes to stuff sometimes.
Well, I at least have them send me the year it was taken, where it is. And then I usually try to get them to tell me the unit, or ask them to send me a article. Or there's a lot of war blogs out there too, where guys would just be on WordPress plugging away at what was going on so that their family could know what was going on back home. So oftentimes I can pair a picture of that art with a war blog too, which is a great way to, on the Facebook page is much better to do that than Instagram. So you can tell the story, post the photo, and then connect to the blog. Maybe find a little excerpt that connects the public and to what's going on.
Can you explain to our listeners what a T-wall is? I think a lot of people that listen are probably, veterans, and you can picture a T-wall in your head, but a T-wall to like somebody that doesn't know what it is like, what are you talking about?
So there's different kinds and groups there, but essentially it's a concrete blast barrier, anywhere from 4 to 14, 12, 14 feet tall. They put them all over, especially Iraq. They used them a lot in Afghanistan too. They'd have this maybe 4 or 5 ton piece of concrete, 14 feet tall. Each one of those costs maybe $800,000 a piece, and they'll just throw that stuff everywhere. The idea behind it is to create an idea of security. It's a great barrier to keep people from walking through. But also, anytime a mortar or rocket would come in, if it does land in a bad spot, at least it only destroys that area. So the shrapnel and the effect of the blast will be limited. So it's just it's a ubiquitous thing that pretty much anywhere you go in GWAT, the wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, and even Syria now are extremely different. But if there's kind of one universal emblem for it, is all that concrete and the HESCO barriers, the pour sand in and the wire mesh HESCO barriers. Those things are just everywhere.
It's safe to say that whichever like third cousin of a U.S. senator who got the contract to produce or provide those T-walls is doing pretty good 20 years later.
That it's just a way to print money. $1,000 a piece, and I mean, how big was Victory Base?
Right. Then thousands upon thousands of these things all over the Middle East and South Asia now.
I should probably just post a photo of just as far as the eye can see, $1,000 pieces of concrete, just for the perspective of they were just everywhere.
I mean, there had to be upwards of on Victory, because that's right. I spent 9 months at Victory, and I mean there had to be upwards of 1 million T-walls, literally 1 million T-walls. They were, I think, around. So my container housing unit. Mm-hmm. It backed onto another chew. So it's basically two single wide trailers. And around us, there was probably 80 T-walls. They were 12 feet, 14 feet high, and I think 6 feet wide. And I mean, they're fucking everywhere. So yeah, I think 1 million might be shortchanging it. Then like theater wide, I mean, that's probably billions of dollars just in fucking T-walls.
Yeah, it's nuts. Did you feel safer? Did it make you feel better seeing all of them around? Anytime I drill into it, that's part of the selling point, I guess.
I will say they do work. 100% I've seen them work.
Yes.
Because we were doing an aerial mission when Parliament got attacked in 2015. And basically somebody drove a V-bid up to Afghan Parliament House. They were having a meeting. And you can watch the video on YouTube. And the whole wall just there's dust and stuff that comes in while they're talking. But nobody that was not an attacker in that attack perished. And what we saw from the air in Kabul was that all that happened was like some of the T-walls got knocked over. Like they were still standing, but like this V-bid literally drove up, and the explosion was so powerful it just knocked these giant, multi-ton pieces of concrete over. But it's like it does work. I think they did what they were supposed to do in that attack. So yeah, I think they do work.
They definitely came in clutch one time. We had the most literal definition of a casualty, because it doesn't necessarily mean a death. We had a contractor who was at the gym on Victory, and we took some IDF that night. And if not for the T-wall being right on the because the station he was at was on the edge of the gym, right? And if that T-wall's not there, that 107 lands right on him. Well, it hits the T-wall. Some debris hits the building. He gets a concussion, and that's it. Right? He's good to go. He takes a couple of days off of work, and he's fine. If those T-walls aren't there, he is dead. So, I mean, they definitely work. And before that, I didn't really think twice about them, right? They're just giant concrete barriers. I know what they're for. I can grasp the concept of them, but you don't really think about them until they actually do something.
Yeah, there's an article that was put out a couple years ago through the Army War College saying that was one of the most effective tools and weapons that they had were those T-walls for protecting equipment. And not only that, I was reading about how they were having issues with Sadr City and Baghdad. They weren't allowed to go in there. They weren't allowed to do anything. What they ended up doing was put about 5 miles of T-walls around the area to cut everyone off and set up those entry control points. And that's it's certainly intrusive, but it's a far less intrusive way to get command and control over an area without kicking in doors.
just to give like our listeners or viewers like a picture, like we've already done that Rose and Rosa T wall. So you made a post recently, Eric, on your Instagram account that really resonated with me, and you talked about the truest expression of art, and I remember thinking that exact same thing during basic training, actually, when you would go to like the porta shitters, and you'd be sitting there, and somebody has drawn a magnificent Michelangelo level dick on the wall of the porta john. You know what I mean? And it's just like it's anatomically correct. It looks like Da Vinci had like cut open somebody and was sketching it. You know what I mean? And you're just like, why would you do that? And well, I had multiple questions. Who had time during basic training to draw that? But B, for no reason except just for the art of it. You know what I mean? And I remember thinking that. And then you made that post recently, and it just resonated so much with me because I remember thinking that before. So I think you have all these people that, some may be more inclined to art than others. Or like you said, some people may be voluntold to make some morale paintings. And you have this endless, government funded canvas for which to put your art. So I think to me, it is interesting. The purest expression. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, it's especially with the porter shitter art and the latrine graffiti, right? There's just poetry. You get just nothing but a pulse on morale, how things are going. There's a war blog out there. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was a lieutenant colonel, and in his blog, he would at least weekly give a post and update about what the Joes are thinking about right now. And you can kind of just get a feeling for, it's what the frustrations are. There's some that are just like, one from Kuwait I remember was just, I've been out here in the desert. It sucks. My kid doesn't know what I look like. And, my wife is with Jody, like, thanks, Fourth ID. And, everything in between. There's poetry, there's arguing. There was some great arguments between the Army and Marines at Al Assad Air Base when I was in Iraq that you could just get. And it's just, some of it's literally just like a dick measuring and dick drawing contest. There's some just wacky stuff out there.
So being in Kuwait, how much time was dedicated to tallying up in porta shitters, whether they consider Kuwait a real deployment or not?
There's a lot out there. There's certainly the rivalry and frustrations that the porta shitters tell you everything that people are feeling about Kuwait at the time. I'm sure combat is one thing, but like the frustration when I was there, the frustration of a 4,000 troops from an armor brigade combat team providing readiness just in case Iraq or Syria went crazy, and all they did was drill and train. And I mean, it sucks out there. I had a better time in Iraq or some of the other places, and like just you get rotations of guys that would come in. Usually active duty would override the National Guard and reserve guys that were out there, so that they'd get a rotation downrange, get their patch, and they just sit there. And you could feel it. The Kuwait is not a real deployment was just ubiquitous within those latrines. I feel for those guys. They got dragged away from their families for 10 months to sit just in case, and provide readiness. They're always providing readiness just in case. If they get called up to the big leagues, they get called to pull tower duty, right, at a FOB in Iraq or Syria. And if they're lucky, they'll get like 30 days of doing that, get their OIR ribbon, and then you're right back to the desert in the middle of nowhere, stuck in purgatory.
See, I don't feel bad for them because of that 4,000 soldiers, one used to be my soldier and I didn't like him. And so I don't really care that he had a tough time there. But I do appreciate you bringing to light just how miserable Camp Buehring is, because of my 366 days in Iraq, the worst day was the 24 hours in Camp Buehring before I got to Iraq. I absolutely fucking hated every second of being at Camp Beering. We got there. It was like October 5th of 2010. It's 4 in the morning and the sun's out and it's 110 degrees. It was awful. I remember getting there and they're like, if you want to shower, don't use the hot water. Just use the cold water because the cold water is hot enough. And yeah, it was 24 hours. Couldn't sleep because it's just too fucking hot to actually get any sleep, to get any level of comfort before going to Baghdad. I had to go to Iraq in order to get comfortable. Kuwait was fucking miserable. It is technically a deployment. I'm jokingly sure it's not, but it is. But yeah, Camp Beering is awful. Ali Salim's only bad because you're there for 3 days before you can move in 2011.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people just confuse when they say, "Oh, you have a pool, you have that Chili's." There's nice amenities like Arif John's very much like a garrison environment. I heard recently that the push right now is you're not allowed to paint any more T-walls because it's not that professional. So I'd be interested to hear if anyone's listening to this, if that's true. But that's what I heard a couple weeks ago. Some medical soldiers painted it with chalk just to see what would happen. Yeah, Camp Beering, that's just purgatory, you know.
It reminds me of that quote. Are you serious? I cannot believe they're not letting him paint T-walls because that's the dumbest thing ever. But it's like, it reminds me of that Apocalypse Now quote from Colonel Kurtz, who, when Martin Sheen finally finds him and he starts waxing poetics about how dumb war is, right? And he's all like, we train young men to drop fire on people, but they can't paint fuck on their airplane because it's obscene. So it's that, I don't know. They're always looking for something to take the fun out. That the army could make anything unfun. So, I mean, think of the most fun activity you can imagine. Shooting guns is pretty fun, not in the army. It's an absolute miserable trip for you.
And it's sad if that is true, because I mean, like you really document like the entire gamut of like different sort of thoughts and feelings that soldiers left behind, from something just, scribbled on a wall somewhere to like some really impressive works of art. And some of them look like they weren't even, voluntold by their sergeant major to do like a unit sign. Like I really like the little side picture of the sort of death mask of Sargon of Akkad. Like, it's really finely detailed. It's gorgeous. And
yeah,
it kind of feels like, if they're going to start cracking down on that and pulling, army bullshit, we're kind of losing something.
Yeah, and it all gets painted over too, right? As soon as it's gone, it's gone.
It's awful to lose that. I mean, because there's already so little in the army. It's all this homogenization of stuff. But part of being in the army is that unit kind of culture, right? Like, different units have different cultures, and you want to like kind of spread that around because it makes it look like a more diverse organization than it normally is. I remember they stopped allowing people to paint their planes because as somebody worked in aviation, I thought that would be really cool to like paint this ugly gray Air Force King Air 350. I'd love to maybe have like somebody do a really cool like mural on the front of it. It'd be cool, but like they take that away too. So I think as you lose your identity, you lose a lot of humanity of it to some degree.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely a case of you can kind of get the sense that the further you are from the command team, the more creative you can be.
Yeah, I think I've gone through every picture on the Instagram page. I've gone through all the pictures on the website because I'm trying to find the one from my unit that I have seen somewhere, and I'm sure you probably got it within your 1,500 other pictures. But I don't think I've seen a single obscene T-wall. I've seen some pretty impressive shit written on the side of a porta-shitter, right? But I think every some are bad. Like my favorite piece of T-wall art is, though, it's on your page, it's on your website, it's not on the Instagram page yet, but it's just like powder blue and somebody just spray painted Fort Lewis Navigators. It's so poorly done. It is my favorite T-wall, right? But none of them are obscene, right? None of them, I think, reach a level where anybody within anybody's command chain should go, oh, we should stop doing this. Because one, it's a release, right? I remember going to Iraq in 2010, and my platoon sergeant, it was his third or fourth trip, and he's finding the old T-walls from his first and second trips there, right? And tell me about, and back then he was an infantryman, he wasn't an intel, and he's telling me about, his first trip out there. They were out in Basra, and all the things they did, and just how much different it was. And like these T-walls do tell a story, and it's not like we can just, it's not Gettysburg where you can just walk, drive there one summer with your family and explain it. So to be able to pull those up off of an internet database and sit your kid down and go, hey, this is when dad was in Iraq, or this is when mom was in Afghanistan, and this is what we did there, is really important. And so, like for the Army, for anybody within anyone's command chain to go stop doing that, I'm in no way surprised, because the Army lives to kill fun.
Yeah, it's the big green weenie
coming to a porta shitter near you.
Well, what do you think? I mean, I've seen many big green weenies drawn in porta shitters. That's a pretty common subject of art, but like the like the Madonna of the Army porta shitter. But so what do you think, though, Eric? I mean, obviously you created the project. It means something very, very important to you. What is the importance of this, or have we already touched on it? Like, what's important about documenting these pieces of art to you?
I think so. It's like there's certainly a disconnect from kind of what people's idea of a lot of GWOT was, what happened. So to me, what's important is you're able to use that as a jumping off point to if I can set this up on the website, get kind of the public to jump in here, because most people don't. In Minnesota here, where I live, like there's not that many people involved in the military. You kind of think that you're Captain America or something. Like I'm a finance guy. So if people, I'm not really going to correct them if people think that I'm John Rambo or something like that. But, it's really a jumping off point for connecting the public to the stories behind it. If you can show down the line, your family or people can dig into things. There's lots of people now that are interested in like that nose art or looking at, grandpa's World War II record and stuff. And if that can be a jumping off point to tell that story, I think that's really important. Really, when I dig into some of the stories, there's no shortage of telling the stories of like the guy that got the Silver Star or the Medal of Honor. Like those guys are going to be all right. But there's a lot of units out there, especially early in Iraq or later in Afghanistan, where it's like, you've got these National Guard and reserve units. A lot of them are support transportation units. They're not kicking in the doors, but for a long time, most of the casualties we were taking were from IEDs, roadside ambushes. So you'd see, there's a lot of stories I try to tell them when I find them of, this 120 guys from a National Guard or reserve company. They go out. Most of them are prior service, served in Desert Storm or something, joined again after 9/11, find themselves in Iraq in an unarmored Humvee or truck getting hit by IEDs. And there's a lot of stories out there of, I think it was in Illinois, a National Guard unit had a 25% casualty rate, lost 2 sets of twin brothers and 3 commanders. And it was a transportation company that did all the postal, running between Victory Base and like the embassy and Taji, running on MSR Tampa and Route Sword, and they just get, or Route Irish too. They just get torn apart. You're not gonna hear those stories unless you look for it. So try to tell that story to get to the things that are more easily forgotten.
I think that's interesting, man, because you're right. It seemed like everybody had a T-wall painted. So, to have that image, it is a good jumping off point, especially when it comes to memory. I think we talked about that a little bit earlier, like we were talking before we started recording how, like 1,000 years from now, like archaeologists or whatever will find those T-walls probably. I can't imagine they won't be there, but the art's going to be gone, right? The painting and the chalk or whatever, whatever they used is going to be erased. And I find that myself too, like as far as like memory goes. Sometimes when you get out of, you have like 5 years of your life or whatever, however long you served, and it becomes this very those 5 years are very important to you, and you spent them with people that then all scatter to the four corners of the earth, or maybe they're not in the army, maybe you don't see them anymore, you left. I mean, you have these incredibly close bonding experiences with somebody, and they're gone. And then when that happens, when you don't have anybody around to share the stories with, your memory starts slipping of the stories. And I think having conversations about that are very interesting. I found that personally just lately. I don't really trust my memory anymore because the people that shared it with me, they're not there to talk about it.
Yeah, it's been really cool to I've gotten a couple like long emails or messages on Facebook that's like, hey, thanks for bringing everything back, like mostly the good memories too, because when you share that graffiti or whatever represented you and your guys there, you're thinking about the camaraderie that's bringing you guys together, not the however you think social media is put together. It really wants to push unsettling things up. Instagram loves like the combat footage and all of that stuff. Like I couldn't imagine. I was when Bagram closed, I got one guy was like, hey, they're painting them over, I'm going to take a bunch of pictures of them, I'll get it to you as soon as I can. And we set up a shared drive. But if you, I don't know how you guys felt when like during the collapse or the closure of Bagram, or closure of Kandahar, but like that hit guys really hard, and I can't imagine how much harder it hit. It was hard for me seeing like photos of people falling off of airplanes and stuff like that. And like you're just shoving that in people's faces. You're trying to get the eyeballs for your page or something like that, but like you're messing with people's heads doing that.
If you showed everybody that has been to Kandahar a picture of the like the totem pole with all the cities and the distances, if you showed them that bare totem pole, everybody that's been to CAF would have a stronger reaction to that than the people falling off the airplane, right? Because when I saw that, I had a stronger reaction to that than that young man falling off the airplane, right? And not to say I don't feel terrible for him and his family, but seeing that, like, that was personal to me, having been there. It was just crazy to see that it's actually gone, it's closed down. Seeing like "Welcome to Fabulous Bagram" painted over, like it was crazy to see those things, because those are staples in our little sphere, right? In our lifetime, that we're never going to forget. And then to see it erased either by force or by necessity is just it's shocking, kind of.
I think what's really poignant about a lot of these pictures, especially probably for the public, is that they capture like half the public thinks we're all mama rapers and baby killers that are just going over there to fight for oil, and the other half thinks that we're like all grunts kicking indoors and doing heroic shit all day. But like what the art really shows are the quiet moments in between that, and just kind of like the human daily lives that we had over there. And yeah, I mean, I had a super strong reaction to that totem pole. Just it takes you back to right where you were during that time that you were there. And I don't know, just it just hits differently. And I think sort of like you guys were talking about stepping off points, I think that's a really powerful one, to be able to show someone something that was like personal to you, and then go off from there.
I really feel like it's our equivalent of those guys from Korea or Vietnam, who have their little trinkets that they brought home, or pictures, right? Or like you said, like the Kilroy was here, right? It's that thing that we can use to go back to a different time. Definitely not a better time, right? But a different time, and a time that was important for all of us and all of our growing. Because I know we've talked about that, right? Like deployments change you, no matter how convenient your deployment is, and that T-wall art, that porta shitter art, right? That's something that is a part of that maturation process.
Yeah, I really hope it can be a jumping off point to, letting people express how they're feeling, tell the story. I was just thinking, I was reading up the other day on like they announced that they're finally going to start the 24-step process of creating a GWAT memorial. But like, is it going like I'm just thinking like, we have those. A lot of them got painted over. Some of them got brought back. Want to make sure that they do it right, and like are right not only to the fallen, but the guys that couldn't handle it when they got home. Right, there was like, I think it was like 30,000 GWAT veterans in active duty have taken their own lives since 2001. That's 3 times what happened in Kuwait and Afghanistan, and you want to make sure that story's told and that people really listen to the experience, so that we don't repeat a lot of the same things over again if we can help it.
Yeah, I think that would go a long way.
And it's like you said, I mean, it's all gone now. You talked about the totem pole and the T-walls and the painting over them. They don't even belong to the United States anymore,
On the upside, you can bet your ass every porta-john the Taliban open, there's a giant penis on it somewhere.
Yeah, you got to wonder what they think about all the stuff they found at the end of it.
Did you see the pictures of all the graffiti the Marines left at the Kabul airport?
Oh, did they write some nasty messages to the Taliban?
Oh, they left. They spray painted dicks and fuck ISIS and fuck the Taliban in the biggest letters they could manage, just all over the place.
Hopefully they had a translator there so they could do it in Pashto.
Most of the Taliban can't read anyway, so even if you wrote it in Pashto, they wouldn't be able to read it.
That's a good point.
But yeah, I think they get the message with the giant dicks. I don't think they'll misunderstand that.
I do want to know, do you have a particular favorite piece that has been submitted or a picture that you took yourself so far? I know it's like 3,000 to sift through in your brain right now.
Yeah. I just got sent one that I need to share soon, where I think I was looking into articles, and this guy reached out to me that was in Spin Boldak, and he, I think it was Spin Boldak, and on inside their HESCO walls, they painted basically a Super Mario level on all the different stages, complete with like Bullet Bill and the flowers, and Mario on there. So I think that's my current favorite. That made me real happy to see. But there's Prison Mike in Bagram, right outside the Craig Hospital, from The Office, right? There's just some amazing ones out there. And then probably my favorite story is there's a couple. I found out that there's a couple that didn't get painted over because they were too hard to reach in Balad. This huge one on top of one of the aircraft bunkers. They weren't able to get at it, so it's just been decaying over time. I found out who painted that, and that's a great way you can show the before and after, where they're doing aircraft maintenance on the Apaches, and the art is right there. You can see it decaying on the Balad airfield today, and I learned that the guy that's working on it is a big advocate for the burn pits because he both painted it, but got medically discharged. He got taken out before the end of his deployment, got multiple sclerosis, I think. And he's like, his body is just like slowly decaying from the burn pits at the same time. So you can that's kind of like capturing so many different things at one time. I think is my favorite. And yeah, like the ones that were spared and weren't painted over, especially like Kuwait, kind of just seeing that memory fading with time. The names disappear before the art and the logo disappear, till maybe you can just make out the unit patch or something is really cool to see. And it kind of, you feel it looking at it.
Yeah, that's an awesome story, dude. I'm glad you're documenting that because I think it'll be interesting to look back, in like 50 years and be like, oh man, that's crazy. Because I mean, obviously it won't exist then, So it's like looking many years from now, especially. I think your project's going to be very valuable, Eric, for sure.
I do want to share my favorite one off of your page, and then I want to get Kyle and Stu's favorite one so far. And I've got
I bet
another
I know
follow-up
which one.
question.
I bet I know which one you picked.
Is it the Afghan democracy.exe has failed? Would you like to restart? Because that's my favorite one.
I like that.
Well, what I like about it, and Eric, you talk about these T-walls telling a story. That's from 2014,
Yeah.
right? That's correction. That's when it was submitted. Was in 2014, right?
Mhm.
Or that's when they saw it at least. Like, so who knows how long it had
that's
been
when
there?
it was created.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going back to at least 2014, right? Like the thing that we've been talking about on this podcast was known then. And I don't think anybody's really surprised about it. But I like it. One, I think it's fucking funny to use like the whole little Windows prompt and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But to also just point out that, yeah, we all fucking knew for a decade that this was going to happen, right? And you talk about like T-wall being a T-wall art and porta shooter art, something like being like the most pure of art, of artistic expression. And I think some of the best art, and hindsight being 2020, the shit that's inside fucking bunkers, that's the best art, right? But I think it's great that exists, and we're all able to look at that and have a great laugh because the funniest things are the true things.
And because it was definitely drawn during an IDF attack, so yeah, got to do something in there, man. We had a lot of late nights getting woken up at like 2 a.m. to the alarms. Like, damn it,
it was annoying.
Go to the bunker.
The worst part of that was that by 2017, like there were roving patrols of MPs driving around making sure that you were taking cover, which is counterproductive to the whole fucking concept, right? Like, I remember hearing them. I'd be in the bunker with Stu and Jarvis, like just chain smoking cigarettes, right, waiting to get the all clear. And you hear some NP out next to the boardwalk yelling at somebody, "Why aren't you taking cover?" And you hear, "Oh, fuck you!" And they just keep going about their day.
Yeah, why aren't you taking cover? Get in here, bro.
Yeah,
hurry up.
Right. What did you think I was going to say, Stu?
Oh, so well. First, I'd like to say that's an awesome choice, and also for any of our viewers who have watched the movie War Machine on Netflix, that's that time period was when that would have been drawn. So you can kind of get an idea that people realized, how badly the experiment was failing. No, but I thought you would spitefully pick the Rakkasan logo that was drawn with smaller Tories, and then somebody spray painted the word legs over it.
No,
which I think is beautiful because
it is.
I mean, we were there at the time that stupid Tory went up, and to explain to people, so the 101st, one of their I think brigades are the Rakkasans, and they got their logo in World War II when they invaded Japan after Japan already surrendered, and it's basically a Japanese Shinto shrine or a torii. And so every time they show up in any war zone, they just slap like stickers and spray paint tories all over the fucking place. And on Kandahar, that was definitely true. You could not escape them every single place. And so the funny thing is that so the 101st back in the day was an airborne unit, but since they're more identified with air assault now, but they still kind of cling to the airborne legacy.
I think they have like one airborne battalion or some shit like that.
Yeah. You get one sort of definitive movie series, Band of Brothers, about them, and now everyone that goes there thinks they're hot shit. But so when you're in airborne, kind of in an elitist viewpoint or joking viewpoint, is to call everyone else legs because they don't jump. So I just thought that was nice because I really hated their fucking moto attitude, even though they all hate their lives like the rest of us, and you should.
I liked a lot of the 101st guys we worked with, right? Like they were pretty cool. But yeah, I got really fucking tired of the Tories. And the rumor, Eric, at the time, and who knows if this is true or not, is that they had a Connex full of stencils and spray paint. It was probably closer to like 3 or 4, tough boxes of stencils and spray paint. I wouldn't doubt that at all because like they showed up to relieve 4th ID, and like a week later, everything had a red fucking Tory on it, like instantly. But the best thing is before they left, they put up that big giant Tory in front of the Attack South headquarters.
Yeah, they
and
made
the
it out of
plaque was
connexes and
misspelled.
shit.
Yeah, they made it out of Connex. Like they bolted it to the Connex, and then the memorial plaque that they had done by some local was misspelled. And then when they left, the 82nd took it down anyways.
My favorite award that I have is my ARCOM that somebody hastily typed up. And the word military intelligence is misspelled. And it's my favorite award of all time. It's my favorite award. It's hilarious to me. I think it's the funniest thing. So, of course, they probably misspelled their freaking Tory.
Did you frame it? You should.
I do. Yeah, I've got it framed. I don't have it up on the wall, but I definitely got it because I love that award. I love.
You should have that framed up behind you instead of that degree.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably.
Yeah,
true.
is that your journalism one?
It is. It's
wait, were you a journalist, Kyle?
Oh,
published?
Actually, I did write an article, Eric. The article that I did have published is about being stuck waiting in Kuwait and how shitty it is. So if you ever read an Atlantic article about how bad sitting in Kuwait sucks ass, I probably wrote it.
Yeah, you'll have to send that to me. I'd be interested to hear it. I was thinking, I was just thinking about Kandahar, and I come across so many old articles from like 2011 through 2014 by like major publications that will just, I don't know if they have a quota where they need to push out like one article per day, but it seems like every Afghan correspondent, as soon as they landed in Kandahar, just wrote like very little, but just showed the pictures of all the stencils by the Kandahar DFAC. Just be like, I truly understand these soldiers now, or I don't know, something going on. That Afghan democracy error one, that and a bunch of others. I think there's the Fight Club one that's pretty popular too. I came across the guy that originally created it, and I think McFly was the graffiti stencilist that created the Afghan democracy era one. But the other one, 06, created all of those. Pack-a-Punch, like the lunchbox ones, and the soldier, the toy soldier, and the Fight Club one. And it was interesting to hear the mayor cell for Kandahar. The American mayor cell was pretty pissed that, like, graffiti is wrong, right? It is my understanding that was being pushed down, and it could potentially hurt morale. Like that Fight Club thing, telling you are not your job and you're like not a special snowflake. Like, you could be attacking the morale of American soldiers right now. It was he's an Australian stencil artist. He's done some cool stuff now. He was like featured at the Australian War Memorial, their main museum. But it was really it was just funny to see like the different attitudes between your expression is hurting morale, when I've heard nothing but like those were some of my favorite things I ever saw.
What hurts Command's morale does not hurt the average human being's morale. We quite enjoy it.
Command doesn't have morale.
We wallow in misery and enjoy it.
I mean, usually the priorities of Command and like the average, soldier are at odds when it comes to morale. Have you had any other war artists that have gone on to be recognized in other facets?
Yeah, there's a couple I've followed up with. Trying to think, there's one that's probably one of my favorites of like cavalry and Bradleys in Camp Beering. There's cavalry and Bradleys like storming across a plain together. It looks really badass. It's probably one of my favorite ones out at Beering. Found out that artist, he's like an assistant professor of art or something out in California. So he took that and just ran with it. There's another one I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but yeah, he was one of those guys that got voluntold because he's got a little sketchbook of what he's doing in his free time. First sergeant liked a sketchbook, told Sergeant Major about him, and he was voluntold to create the battalion's T-wall out at LSA Anaconda in Iraq. And so he's sitting there, he's painting it. He almost gets taken out by a rocket attack. And I think on the back side of that wall is chipped out from a piece of shrapnel. that he didn't hear because I guess he was painting it with his, he was wearing headphones outside of the gym, painting it. Big no there with his old iPod from 2006. But he painted that one. They liked it so much when they were closing down Balad that it's now on display at the Army Transportation Museum in Virginia. So that's one of the few that I can think of that was actually moved back to the U.S. But yeah, he was the guy I was referring to. He came back. He went back to the factory. It was like, I did so much more than this. I can do more than this. And he was a mechanic. So he opened his own custom shop, and now he's doing all sorts of Monster Garage stuff. So doing all the hot rod detailing. He's got his own shop out there. So it's been cool to see people, launch to that next level. And there's lots of guys that are doing cool stuff on Instagram from the past 5 years or so, where they'll just do it in their free time and then create cool stickers or whatever too.
I think too. I think back to it's either the Smithsonian. I think it's the Smithsonian has a section of the Berlin Wall, right? Like, and even that, like the little bit of graffiti on there tells a story. So like, I really hope whichever units were able to get shit brought back beyond those few T-walls, it would be great if you could, if the powers that be that are deciding this GWAP memorial, that's where they should go, right? Because I feel like that is just that's one of those things that you don't think about until like you sit around like we are now, 20 years after the whole damn thing started, and you realize just how relevant, how much of a piece of the last 2 decades stuff like that really is, right? So hopefully whichever units were able to pull that shit out when they left wherever they're at, they can find a way within their heart of hearts to donate that.
Yeah, if anyone was at Fob Warhorse in like 2010, 2011, I still want to know what happened to the panels from their memorial. So Fob Warhorse in Iraq had this big memorial garden where every single unit that was stationed there over 6 years had a list of all of the guys that didn't come back with them listed, and they had just taken sheet metal and written names out in Sharpie. There's hundreds of names just on that one alone. It got packed up, but I've reached out a couple times. I can't figure out where those panels went. Hopefully that didn't just get thrown away. There is hopefully I think I was hearing some of the stuff from the Bagram Hospital got brought back. I heard that all of the hockey boards from the Kandahar Hockey League got brought back. They're at the Canadian Hockey Hall of Fame.
Of course.
A couple of them are on display.
The ice rink that wasn't an ice rink. The
iceless rink.
Oh man, I'm glad that came back. That's good. I'm glad they got it out. Good for Canadians. I'm glad they did it.
And then I can only think of Bagram right now, but if it wasn't 5 tons of concrete, they did try to take a lot of that stuff back. They were scrambling. I guess at the time I was reading about, there's some really shitty details where I guess some people were tasked to just scrape the sticker dumps off of whatever they could before leaving, on top of painting over all of the like that Bagram sign, the pretty iconic Bagram, welcome to Bagram.
I wouldn't have done it. If I were the Joe who was told to do that, I wouldn't. I would tell them to go fuck themselves. What are they gonna do? Leave me in Bagram? So, Eric, we're wrapping up here. I do have one last question. I've seen you post about it. Is there going to be like a deployment gym series? Is there enough traction for that?
Yeah, I've got about a dozen together. It was fun at just asking for all the different names. I think one that came in a couple of days ago, his suggestion was to call the series Iron Paradise, but we'll see what it comes out. But yeah, I've got about a dozen of those together. I was thinking about using that as a collection to help transition and guide people from my old website to kind of that database searchable, but I should probably just start teasing some of them out. There's some really cool ones out there.
Well, man, we look forward to it, Eric. We do appreciate you coming on and talking about it, and it's an awesome project, and we love when obviously veterans are doing something to bring attention to GWAT. So Thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay in touch. If anyone wants to know what Army finance is like, there's some wild stories there too.
For those of you listening, Eric's the reason you didn't get paid last week.
No, we fixed it.
Sure.
It's fixed now.
They found that signature block that S1 missed.
No, I was mostly the one that said you could only have, I think it was like $60 per month in U.S. cash, and you had to come to me if inevitably you lock your Eagle Cash card.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Eric, I mean, we really appreciate you coming on, and once again, for the listeners, if you haven't hit up the War Murals website, which is warmurals.com, or seen Eric's Instagram page at War Murals, please go do that. It's some really cool stuff out there. And Eric, we will keep in touch. And thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you. Great time.
Oh.